So the recurring theme throughout the trans rights activism as it's escalated has been about safeguarding, and children have been the central stakeholder to this conversation in every single way since the beginning. Now, the rights of transsexuals and the rights of people with gender dysphoria was never contested, and in fact it went through almost unopposed. And then as soon as we started the alignment of trans rights with a wider safeguarding context, this behaviour started. And some of the demands, the All Sorts pack is disturbing. The demands that we basically it's been textbook grooming. And it's demands that gender non-conforming children are removed from safeguarding because somehow we have magically, on the basis of no evidence, we're going to abandon everything that we know about childhood, adolescent identity formation. And when young people who are presenting with gender dysphoria, which should always be treated as a safeguarding issue, should always be treated as mental distress. If a child is presenting to you and saying that their body does not match the world and they want to change their body, you should be thinking about lots of things. You need to be assessing whether they are neurotypical, because, autism and ADHD are, and all these other Asperger's, they create huge problems around identity formation in their teens. You should be asking about sexual abuse. You should be asking about other issues. And this is normal. And this is what the Tavistock Centre are doing, the Tavistock Clinic, they're doing, because this is established. But on Twitter, there's been a very, very concerted demand that not only do we start to prioritise the inner 7-year-old girl of adult males who are obsessed with sex, to the point where even mentioning that this is a safeguarding debate makes you a TERF and can get you threatened and get you doxxed and get people try and fire you and drive you off the internet. We have seen coordinated abuse and violence to prevent women discussing the implications of a safeguarding debate that was requested. So the conversation that we were asked to have, because trans rights meant that this is a new factor now that we have to factor into all these frameworks, the minute we started having that conversation, we became worse than Nazis, and we could be punched and we could be threatened. Venice Allen could not even get a venue for a meeting. Part of the reason that we're all doing meetings and we're all fucking meeting all the time is because she couldn't even get a venue. Millwall wouldn't even host her. Because the same people, and I could give you their Twitter names, I could write them down, you know exactly who I'm talking about, went after every single venue. I had to pay £60 to get a security guard to come and sit full of a bunch of middle-aged women having a relatively middle-of-the-road conversation about existing law. Children have always been the central stakeholder here. The fetishisation of girls within this has been extraordinary. If you see an adult male who's fetishising teenage girls as an expression of his latent sexuality, he's telling you something about himself. When you see an adult male who's telling you that 13-year-old girls are oppressing him and privileged over him, he's telling you he's dangerous. This has not changed because of trans identities. The demand that we rip gender non-conforming children out of safeguarding, make them objects in the identities of adult activists, push them down a path of medical treatment that will lead them without sexual sensation when a sex change in a child is not possible and the only thing you can do is halt puberty and actual normal sexual maturation, because somehow adult activists view children who have had their puberty stopped as ideal sexually. That is all red flags. These are very solid red flags. And what Twitter has given you is an example of an environment where red flags are ignored and where people do not see and people get caught in the moment and they find objects to project shit onto and to shout at, so that bad shit can happen. This is a mess, and this is a mess that could have been avoided had the institutions who are responsible for our safeguarding institutions, our political parties, our media, who are the political voice of these systems, had any fucking awareness of what they were. And instead, what is rapidly emerging around Amy and David Challoner is a disturbing picture of links between organised paedophiles and trans rights activism that has utilised this situation, jeopardised trans rights forever. And really the backlash was already going to be grim. But this appears to have been directly about children. And I'm going to be honest with you. Amy Challoner in this situation, while he is a mentally disturbed young man who has caused a great deal of harm, is not even remotely a driver here. And I think we need, I have a feeling that this tin of worms has only just started tipping over, because the backlash that had already been generated by the abusive behaviour of media-focused trans activists was already growing. We have already broken that dam. But I have a feeling that what's about to emerge is really, really a lot more unpleasant than any of us had ever dared to worry.